think the whole business from that side of things was we were working with quite large corporate clients in Cambridge, but also because Cambridge was very geared around the science part, we dealt with pharmaceutical businesses as well. But unfortunately, things happened, things changed, and we got quite badly burnt. But the whole element of your skill sets and your strategic side of things, fit out was a lot more exciting, but also you could get more out of it from a business point of view. Where I was, I had my wings clipped. Couldn't go for the big fit out opportunities. There's so many things that as a business we weren't able to do. The year I left, we turned over the most. Business got up to 40 million. I started and it was doing 2.6, 2.8 million. So over the time, it was a massive growth from doing 2.6 million as furniture to 40 million and making a very good gross and net profit. Risk and mitigation comes into projects at the moment, and my biggest words to the whole team is what's the risk and mitigation on any job that we cost at the moment to make sure that we counteract it. So at the point of costing jobs, I want to look at if there's any risk. So for us to go to a project, we absolutely rip, script, look at it, what is our angle to win that job? And they're buying projects at levels where you just don't want to get involved, and unfortunately, going back to your ISGs, I hope it doesn't happen, but I don't think it's at the end.
Ben, welcome to SQFT-Stories.
Thank you. Welcome. I'm enjoying it.
Thanks for taking the trip down, my friend.
No problem.
Mate, loads of topics I want to dive on today. Obviously, we're going to chat everything D&B, fit out, and maybe touch on a bit of commercial property as well. But I always like to start at the start and have a little chat about how you made your way into the D&B world.
Well, I think from a business point of view, I think the first thing is when I left school, I got into commercial agency. So the first thing I ever did was I was a commercial agent in Cambridge, and for me it was really understanding a bit about the commercial property and everything else. But when I spent probably 18, 24 months in that industry, I realised very quickly that I was never going to be qualified. So it was one of those things in those days you really had to be qualified to get the better jobs and the better opportunities. So I then went into property. So getting into fit out probably started when I was in my early 20s, and I was asked, I went to weirdly meet a recruitment consultant in London, and the company at the time was called Arlington Recruitment, which anyone in the fit out industry will probably know that name going back in the day. And I remember meeting one of the owners up there, and they said, well, what do you want to do? And I said, well, what are the options? He said, you can get into furniture, you can get into fit out, or you can get into IT. And those were the three big topics that they looked at. And at the time I got into furniture. I started with a company in Cambridge selling iron furniture. So that's how I started in the industry, spent less than 12 months there. And my cousin at the time was working for another company in London called Intercraft, and we basically, after a year of being in, we set our own business up.
Okay.
So
what, in the furniture realm?
No, furniture and fit out. So
Okay.
we had our own furniture and fit out business that was based. We had an office in Cambridge, and we worked out of a service space in London as well. So that's how I got into office fit out.
So what sort of like projects were you doing then? So that was quite early on in your career that you teamed up with your cousin. So
yeah, I mean, I think the whole business from that side of things was we were working with some quite large corporate clients in Cambridge, but also because Cambridge was very geared around the science part, we dealt with pharmaceutical businesses as well. So we started literally looking at local clients, local customers, and that's how we got into the sort of fit out side, and it got bigger and bigger. But unfortunately, things happened, things changed, and we got quite badly burnt. So,
what is in financially?
Yeah, I mean, we were working with several manufacturers, several fit out companies, and a certain manufacturer that we were working with at the time sold us some product to a particular client, and there was they weren't necessarily selling the product they should have been selling, and we got basically hauled into a court case. Not from our point of view, but we basically sold product to a client that we were told clearly what it was, and as far as we were concerned, that's what it was. The brochure, the details, and the manufacturer we were working with was making it in a company in the UK, not in Denmark. So that unfortunately cost us a lot of money and brought our business pretty much to a halt. which was a real.
It's a shame, isn't it? Especially something that's so out of your hands as well. And
it was, and it was. They were really good clients, and from a business point of view, we were enjoying it. We were doing really well. But sometimes when you're going through those things and you get a massive financial situation like that, and we got hauled into it. Not that it was our responsibility, but we had to basically explain what had happened, go through the various paperworks, and it became quite messy. So unfortunately, I then moved from there, and I started working for a steel case dealer that was selling fit out as well. So I worked with another company in Cambridge and another company in Hertfordshire. So
it must have been difficult. Sorry to flip back as well, just on the court case side of things. It must have been difficult because if you're selling a product that you're selling something that you know, but what's been supplied isn't something that you know. I suppose it's difficult for you to almost convince your client of competency, because they're almost looking at you thinking you should know what's coming, and unfortunately you don't, because you're trusting your supplier and whatnot. So it must have been a difficult conversation to have with the client when it got to the point where you had to explain what was actually going on.
Massive, because what came about is that the product that we'd sold to the client started blistering that shouldn't have blistered, and because it came from Denmark and the way it should have been manufactured didn't happen. So it was a real. I think where it was is you're enjoying what you're doing, and when you get to a point where you've got no choice and you have to close a business, you have to learn from it. And I think the one thing that I did is that we learned from what had happened. And my partner at the time, he went off and did his own thing, and then I said, right, okay, this is where we're going to go. So I basically worked for several fit-out steel case dealers in Cambridge and Hertfordshire, and enjoyed it. It was really good. But then I got to a stage where at 30, I didn't own any property, I didn't have any responsibilities, and I thought, wow, okay, what shall I do?
Was that like a wake-up moment, was it? Not a wake-up moment, but like a bit of realisation.
Do you know what it was? It was a moment of freedom, and it was a moment of, I'm going away. So I took 18 months off, and I travelled the world. And it was the best thing I've ever done. And I met my wife now in Australia at the time, and I met some amazing people. And I think what it does is it gives you an element of confidence. And I think when of all of the podcasts and conversations that you've had with various people, everyone's had a moment. You know, there's been a moment where all of a sudden you go, wow, this is who I am, this is what I'm about, or this is what I can do. And I realised in the 18 months of backpacking and travelling and the conversations that I'd had and the jobs that I did, which were jobs that I would have never done at, one of my jobs I did is I ended up painting and decorating a house in Avalon on the outskirts of Sydney. And the people I were with were traders from trading companies that it was their property, and I'm there backpacking, and they said, come and stay here, 1,500 quid a week we'll give you to paint and decorate the house. And I'm going, really, this is amazing. And it's things like that I've never done before. And but what I did do is I found who I was as a person and what I could do, and at the time I actually read a book. I was reading several books, but there was a book called The Celestian Prophecy, and it's a book about certain manuscripts and everything else. But what it is behind every meeting there's a reason, and when you meet someone or when you have a conversation with someone, it can go one of two routes, and it's which route it takes you. And that's what I've basically worked on ever since, is that you never know what comes from a meeting. Like you and I, how we've met through someone else.
You are right.
And I think it's really interesting.
It's interesting. A couple of points I want to touch on, that were actually 2 or 3, is the travelling side of things as well. So I didn't do anywhere near as long as what you did, but what I did was just 4 or 5 months in Asia, and even that short period of time, it completely changed my general mindset on. I should say probably my general outlook on myself as a person. What I learnt from just operating in a completely different continent in the world I was with my girlfriend actually, but on our own as such. It completely changed the outlook of who I was as a person, who I wanted to be as a person as well. And also, you mentioned a book that kind of changed the way you think about things. I read a book I read it actually before I went, and I read it whilst I was away in Asia, and I've read it a few times since. It's called The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho, I think. And I think at the specific times where I've read the book, it's really resonated with me, because in the book, I don't know if you've read it, but it's about, and I don't want to butcher this as well, so if anyone's listening and picks up something, I apologise, but the general consensus of the book is that there's a chap who he wants to find some gold, I think, and he makes his way through Egypt, and he comes up against so many different situations on his journey whereby he could quit and he could stop trying to chase the goal that he wants to chase, but he just stumbles around and he keeps going, and he meets different people and he has different conversations, and he meets somebody and works in a place for a couple of days, and then he finds something, and then he moves to the next place, and then looking at the book holistically, it starts from A and ends up at B, where what his goal was, but the journey between A and B was so varied, and he met so many different people, and he had so many different conversations, and he had so many different experiences, that each individual part of that journey actually allowed him to get to that goal, which slightly links back to what you say about how a meeting could end up in different ways, and how conversations can change the trajectory of your path in your life, and ultimately for me, that book, what resonated most with me is that as long as you're moving towards a certain goal, and you're moving towards along the path of what you want to do with your life, you'll meet people along the way, and conversations will happen, and something else will happen, and eventually you end up getting to the certain goal that you want to achieve. So it's interesting that you read a book that kind of was similar, but a little bit different.
I think it's very similar, because I think whether it's manuscripts or whether it's trying to get some gold, I think it's how you get there. And I always say, an analogy, that when you get to a train station, it's what train you get on. Do you get on the slow train or do you get on the fast train? And that journey that you're on in life is almost like your business journey. Who wants to be on the same train that you're on? And it's being a leader and leading from the front, but also it's having a train and making sure that everyone's on the same train. They know what experience they're going to get on that train.
Interesting.
And I think the scenario is that sometimes people could be on the slow train, and that's fine, and that's what that's their thought process and belief. But when you're on a slightly different journey, you just want to make sure that everyone's on that same journey and you've got the same goals and ambitions.
It's difficult to and another thing I'm sure we'll touch on throughout this conversation, but another thing you mentioned there is, like, if you're trying to get people on the same train as you, so ultimately cultivating a team of people to work towards a goal, it's very difficult to cultivate a team of people who are working towards the same goal as you, but also to keep them motivated. And because there's so many different types of people in this world, it's almost like the man management of each individual person is something that you can only really learn with experience, I think. Like trying to learn what different intricacies of different people and trying to cultivate your team and work towards a goal.
I think that's what has changed. I think since COVID, hybrid working, I think that's changed more and more.
In a good way or bad way?
Progressing. I think in a positive way. That I think you with your team and staff members and people that you're working with, when you've got hybrid working and you're not in the office all the time and you're not collaborating with them, when you are talking to them, whether it's your one-to-ones, you're more than likely doing it through, not necessarily like we are face-to-face, you're doing it over the phone, you're doing it over Teams. So I think it's become more and more important to be able to give people clear direction and clear conversations of areas that you're working together to get the end result. But I think whereas previously you'd be sitting in the office around a meeting table or in the office and collaborating, now all of a sudden it's over the phone. So you really do need to be clear with your directions and your thoughts and your processes, because otherwise it's going to be misread.
Yeah, I mean, so you can lose so much emotion through a conversation over Teams or Zoom or over the phone that you can't pick up in person. So if it's it's an interesting point you raised there, where you said you have to be really careful and considerate about how you're delivering a message when you're delivering it remotely as such, compared to being in person.
Yeah, because emails are misread.
Oh yeah, without doubt. It's impossible to put emotion into an email, and it's impossible to also extract emotion from an email because it's just words. There's no human, there's no physical behind it. It's just words. So your perception of that email is just what your mind is telling you your perception is. It's not necessarily what the sender's perception is of the email.
And that's another thing that, you know, was clearer many years ago. Was a lot clearer because it was all via email. Now emails are misread.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, you can send a constructive email to someone or an email, you know, saying well done, congratulations, and they can completely misread it, and you're going, okay, fine. So it is very, very tricky, and I just think that's more and more to do with how you communicate, how you deliver your conversations, and how you work with your team, because, you know, you can be a manager of people, or you can be a coach or a mentor, and I think the way that I've always tried to work with teams is to be a mentor, to be a coach, and to give people that element of support, rather than being dictatorial and telling people. It's more along the lines of trying to work with them and get the most out of them, and also give them clear goals as well, so
I
they
think
know
that's
where
like
they're going.
the new way of leadership, I'd say. I mean, I'm sure it was around 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago as well, but
You're saying I'm old?
No, I didn't say that. Again, that's your perception of what...
Spot on.
Not at all. But, you know, I feel like the modern way of leading is there's a lot more empathy behind leading, and trying to actually, you know, lead empathetically as such, like trying to give people like an opportunity, and, you know, trying to be with them rather than telling them what to do. It's more like showing them how to do it, and giving them the confidence to do it, and then once they can do it, you know, congratulating them. This is definitely a new way of leading. But let's jump back on your career as such. So obviously you worked in a few different fit out companies, and you had an interesting journey at that point. So what led you into working for FSL? Was it?
It was FSL. I came back from backpacking after 18 months. Wanted to get a job, and at the time I had to earn money straight away. So weirdly, I straight away started earning local cash, working in a pub, working on a site where a demolition site, just to earn cash very quickly for the first month. And then I said, right, okay, where do I get a job? And similarly went to the same recruitment consultant I started, and I got an opportunity with, at the time it was a company called Maris Furniture Solutions, and they were based over in Church Crookham near Fleet. And it was like, okay, well, I'm in Cambridge, and Cambridge is very insular. So as a location, you know, unfortunately back in the day, going up to London was quite a biggie. Now it's very different, but back in the day, trying to go to London from Cambridge. So I just wanted to get away from where I'd lived, and I decided, right, let's have an interview. And I got an interview, and got the job, and the business changed from Maris Furniture Solutions to Furniture Solutions, and then it evolved into FSL Group as a business, and I was there for 27 years. I worked for two different MDs at the time, two different individuals, and learnt a lot of different things from those two individuals.
Interesting. So like 27 years were you there?
Man and boy, yeah.
Man and boy. So like, how did you progress in the industry yourself over those 27 years? Because you must have learned a hell of a lot through the journey.
Yeah, I mean, I think from a business point of view, it was very much, you know, at the time we were a Hayworth dealer, so, you know, that's how we set the business up. That it was predominantly furniture, and then we started doing small works, and then the small works got bigger and bigger, so it became Furniture Solutions, and then more and more clients were saying, you do fit out and you call Furniture Solutions. So the business at the time rebranded as FSL Group, and, you know, we started doing more and more fit out as a spin-off from the holding company Maris.
And were you in the fit out or the furniture? Or
Originally I was in the furniture, and then transitioned over the years into the fit out side of things, which, to be fair, was it's a lot more exciting, and it's a lot more of a technical sell. There's nothing wrong with selling furniture. Furniture was really good, and it's been very, very good for me from a business point of view, and I've been lucky to work on some very interesting and large projects. But the whole element of your skill sets and your strategic side of things, fit out was a lot more exciting, but also you could get more out of it from a business point of view. And every fit out job had furniture on it as well, so that's where we pushed it.
It's like a natural progression on both sides of the coin as well. Furniture dealers go into fit out, and then fit out companies ultimately sometimes end up branching off into supplying furniture in house. That is, not out of house. So it's like a natural progression. I find that. So 27 years, long journey. So when and how did that journey come to an end at FSL?
I think from a business point of view, it was always on the basis that I always wanted to get to a point where I owned something, or I was part of owning something. And many years earlier, I had my own fit out company, and I always wanted to be able to do that. And unfortunately, where I was, there was never going to be an opportunity where we could acquire the business. And I was hungry and ambitious, and I really wanted to, for another 10 years, get my teeth stuck into something that and to be fair, my wife was always pushing me, if you want to do it. And I got to a point probably in the last 5 years, it's like, well, okay, how do you do it? How do you exit? And I'd had multiple conversations about, what can we do with where I was, the current business, and is there an opportunity, and how can I get something out of it in 10 years time? And it never really transpired. So I got to a point where the year I left, we turned over the most that we've ever turned over as a business. The business got up to 40 million. I started and it was doing 2.8 million. So over the time, it was a massive growth from doing 2.6 million as furniture to 40 million and making a very good gross and net profit. So I feel I went out on a high, but being honest and transparent, it took me over 3 to 5 years to get out of the business because I had to wait for the right opportunity. I was earning very good money, and I call it lock-in. There's a financial incentive to stay where you are, and you're in a position where to go, it has to be the right move. But also you're being paid a good salary, and you're earning a good salary. So to be able to move from your current position to somewhere else, it's not just about the money. It has to be a reason behind it. And I got offered several different opportunities. I never went out looking. I got approached by one guy who offered 40% of his business to get involved.
Oh, wow.
And he's doing really well now, and I'm really pleased for how his business has developed. And we tried to get that one over the line, and we had multiple meetings. I thought that was going to happen, but we couldn't get it over. Which was, which in some ways, looking back, it's a plus, but it was a nice opportunity to look at. And then there was another business that approached me to set up a fit-out company in London, and we'd had multiple meetings. Probably some of this, I think, multiple meetings, and they asked me to present in their board meeting. And a really, really switched-on bunch of guys based in Yorkshire, who are doing really, really well now. And they asked me to set up a London office. We had multiple meetings as well on that one. We just couldn't quite get it over the line. Yeah. So I then decided, well, okay, I'm going to stick where I am, and I need to make it work somehow. Which for me, there was little progression. I couldn't get to it. I was never going to run that part. I was never going to run the whole company. Yeah. It was very set how the business was going to be structured. And then completely out of the blue, having decided, okay, right, I totally focused, got to stay, I got approached. And I got approached by a company that basically the owners want to take a back step. They want someone to come in and take the business from where they are circa at the moment 10 million to the business in excess of 28 million over the next 8 to 10 years. And I had some good meetings with the FD and the owners of the business, and it took a while to get it agreed. Yeah. And they came back with an offer, and I just said, look, I just can't accept it. And they said, well, what would you accept? And I went, look, I'll be honest. And it's very difficult when you've been somewhere for so long, to actually have that. And I said, look, the only way I could do it is because of this, and this. Yep. And they said, okay, well, if we give you this, and this, will you join us? And I went,
Can't have got it now.
and that was it. And that was it.
Yeah.
So I had a 6 months to sort out. I had 3 months leeway and then 3 months notice period and everything else. And that was just over 12 months ago now. So it took that while. And I think that's what you see with so many people is how do they get out? You know, and there are so many people in the market at the moment that don't know how to get out. And it took me quite a few years to get out. And I still have conversations with people from multiple fit-out companies, and they can't, you know, at my age, to be able to jump ship, go to a business. Move, isn't it? It's a big move, but also where I was, I had my wings clipped. You know, I couldn't go for the big fit-out I couldn't go for the big fit-out opportunities. You know, there's so many things that as a business we weren't able to do because we were owned by a bigger company that did the bigger jobs, and you know, you can't go for those agents. So there were a lot of restrictions. So the one thing that came out when I left is my wings aren't clipped anymore. I can talk to these commercial agents. I can you know, approach these projects now. So that gave me an element of freedom, which is, you know, one of the and also just to demonstrate to people that, you know, I have that element of confidence, and I know I can do it, and I know I can take a business to the next level, and that's part of the excitement.
So that was 27 years there. That come to an end. And is that when you joined where you are now, which is Active?
So when I joined Active, yeah.
Active. Okay, cool. And you've been there for 12 months, you say?
I've just turned. So one of the owners told me last week I've done 12 months.
Have you?
So
yeah. Birthday.
So I've done my 12 months. I've finished all my my restrictions and everything else. So from my point of view, you know, it's been, you know, in the first 12 months we've restructured the business, we've rebranded the business, we've brought a new IT system in, we've secured the biggest job that the business has done, and we've turned over the most that the business has turned over since it's been going, which is about 25 years. So I feel that it was the right thing to do. The owners have had the confidence in me to say, Ben, get on with it.
Yep.
And in the first year, we've been able to put those things in place. It's been tough.
Yeah, I bet.
There's no two ways about it. It's been an exciting ride, and it's been a tough first year, but we knew that was going to be the case, and we knew also that there was going to be a lot of change in the first year because of how the business was and where they wanted to take the business going forward.
It's a big change for you as well, because going from you know, working at FSL and being part of a big team, I suppose now to leading potentially a big team. So like, how did you transition from one to the other?
I think I was never worried about leading a team or running a business. That had never worried me, because I know as part of who I am and part of the business and my character that I'm comfortable doing that side of things. I think it's having the safety net of being established, fit out furniture owned by a big corporation, to going into a business that has been established for 25 years. But originally the business was set up as a FM company and a move management part of the business, and they did do fit out and furniture, but it was very much that's how the business started. Whereas they wanted to go into design and build. They knew design and build was the way forward. They wanted to find the right person that could take the business from today to where they want it to get to. And I saw the potential, and for me the potential was very much that they have moved management and furniture, but also we rebranded the business to have a works team which does jobs under 150,000, to have a move management furniture team, but the biggest USP is we have an FM part. So we have an FM, a facility management part of the business, and that's the biggest, from a business point of view, that's where your USP is, that's where the value of a business would be, because you're looking at contracted revenue. So most of the contracts that we have are contracted to 3 years or for 5 years, and you've got guaranteed revenue that comes in. But without giving too many things away, from a business point of view, our biggest part of the business that we want to grow as much as the design and build is the FM part of the business. But also when you sell a job from a fit out point of view, you have to look after it anyway, because you want your retention back.
Yeah.
So to get your retention back, you look after their facilities. So you put a facility management contract in place. So that's something that we've worked on. We have a lot of corporate clients that we've worked with for many years, and we have a really experienced and competent person that runs our FM team, that develops multiple large corporate clients and partnerships. And then now what we've done is we're adding on the design and build part of the business, so that's where the whole business is going to grow going forward, and have the support of the FM team as well.
How do you manage the risk? And it might not be a risk actually, but say you've got a 5-year contract with said client in the FM department. How do you manage the risk of having to work for those 5 years under a contract in terms of cost? Like, are those costs fixed from year one through the 5 years, or can you mould with the times with the cost? So, like, what I mean by that as well is I've had a conversation with somebody about ISG who went under, and a lot of the blame got put on the fact that they had fixed costs for contracts that lasted over so many years, and then when the market changed, the material and labour cost inflated so much that they couldn't inflate their price with it, so therefore they ended up in negative equity as such on projects. So, like, how do you manage that with a 5-year contract?
So from an FM point of view, you have you have contracted revenue and you have reactive revenue stream. So you don't just have one. So there's elements that are contracted, and those contracted revenues are supported on a monthly, annually basis. And let's just say it's a particular contract. After that first year, you've got an opportunity where you can increase the cost for whether it's cleaning, whether it's maintenance, and various other things. So we have reactive, we have the contracted revenue. Then off the back of that as well, we also have the fabric side of things, so fit out opportunities where we support them. So you have projects that relate to FM, you have the contracted revenue, but you can't do it on a fixed cost for 5 years. There has to be a fluctuation on certain key things. So there's certain costs that do go up, and you factor that in. And it's an interesting point, because the margins in FM aren't anywhere as great as they are in the fit out side of world. So you need to make sure that the contracts that you work with, you do have clear transparency, but also you need to make sure that you can run the projects and you can run those facilities at those margins, because it is very, very aggressive, but you can't support it where there's change in, for example, mechanical. There's certain costs going up at the moment where you look at mechanical air conditioning sides of things, you can't absorb those costs. You have to pass those costs on. And reverting back to your point, fixed costs at the moment, going back a few years, you could support them for 3 months, you could support them for 6 months. You're lucky to guarantee costs for a month at the moment.
Yeah. Was that from the FM side of things?
It's from the FM, but also from the fit out side of things. I think when you're putting costs forward on projects at the moment, and you're guaranteeing those 3 months, and this is where I think a lot of fit out companies are getting caught out still today, is that you cost the job 3 months ago, cost the job 6 months ago, the job comes around, you want to recost it, and the client's thinking, well, hang on a sec, you've given me a cost, and you're going, well, we have to recost it, but do you want the job? So when you actually go to recost it, you'll find out all of the Dakin units have gone up by 5%, and it's like, well, so you either hit the client with an extra 5% because the costs have gone up, or you swallow it. But that's where it becomes really difficult and really complicated. And then the client thinks, well, hang on a second, you're taking me for a ride. You're not. You're trying to offer clear transparency. And that's where risk and mitigation comes into projects at the moment. And that's my biggest words to the whole team is, what's the risk and mitigation on any job that we cost at the moment, to make sure that we counteract it. So at the point of costing jobs, I want to look at if there's any risk. Because and the risk might be mechanical, the risk might be steel, the risk might be and it's just trying to make sure that you future-proof it and you cover yourself at the beginning. And going back to FM, it's no different from that point of view, that if you take a contract on, you've got to make sure that you can maintain it. Now, we get offered contracts at the moment on margins that we can't work with, so we can't work on those contracts, because some of the margins are silly, because people want to buy contracts, and by buying contracts, what it means is my business is worth more money, but you've just bought that contract at 3%.
How do they even sleep at night knowing that they've brought a contract at 3%, knowing they're not going to make any physical money from the contract, really?
Well, the salesperson that sold it isn't the owner of the business, so there is that part where, and it is still going on. There's no two ways about it. In certainly from an FM point of view, and fit out, people are still buying contracts. 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 People projects, and they're buying projects at levels where you just don't want to get involved, and unfortunately, going back to your ISGs, I hope it doesn't happen, but I don't think it's at the end. I think there are going to be other companies, and obviously IOR have gone into receivership, and there are other companies at the moment that are still literally, and it's cash flow. Everything at the moment is all about cash flow.
Yeah, I watched I weirdly, I don't know why, but I weirdly got obsessed with the whole WeWork story.
Wow, yeah. They've done a few programs on that. It is fascinating.
It's so fascinating. I mean, I haven't watched the there's a I think it's on Disney or something called We Crashed, which is like a series about Adam Newman and WeWork. But I got so fascinated with number one, Adam Newman as a leader and a salesman, and a communicator as well. He's incredible at communicating an idea and cultivating a team of people, and like getting people to work towards a goal. But also just as the way that he portrays himself and the way he can share like a cultural idea is just, I found it so fascinating. But anyway, I watched an interview with him, and he said that one of the main pitfalls from what happened with WeWork is because tech companies went from revenue based, they got judged on revenue quite quickly to being judged on profit, and that's where he fell short, because they were obviously, his valuation was something ridiculous. I think he got to like 47 billion or something like that, based on revenue, but they weren't making any money. They were torching like hundreds of thousands of pounds. So it's interesting that you say that side of things, that that companies like construction companies, that they're buying projects, and it's for revenue. It's for the revenue side of things, but they're not taking into consideration the profit behind it. And there probably will be more companies that do go under. And I don't know what should change to fix that side of things, because it is a real issue in the as a whole in the construction industry. And I'm sure it's been happening for many, many years, and it probably will for many years going on. But I don't know if you have any ideas of how that could change potentially, or what we can do as an industry to try and stop it.
I was going to say, your point about WeWork, that guy knows how to get a deal. And one of my old MDs worked with him directly,
really,
and won a massive furniture project. But it was very strange and I remember him reciting the story. And the story goes along the lines of, I'm going to sell you a chair, a bed, and a desk for $200 or whatever the figure may be.
Yeah.
And my old MD, who's probably the best salesperson I've worked with, who taught me how to be a chameleon and what a chameleon's all about, pitched to the guy of WeWork, and the guy said, "Okay, if you want the deal, I want it for $124 or whatever the figure was." It was a stupid price.
Yeah.
And that was it, and he walked away, and he walked off. I mean, literally, it was a very, very quick meeting. That's it. That's the story. And he did get the deal. But what he did is he ended up going over to China, finding out how much he could buy every single individual desk, chair, bed for that price, went back, redid it, and won the furniture deal. And that is the difference. And that, to me, is, even to this day, it is whatever it takes. And he wanted that deal, and he would do whatever it takes to get that deal, and that's how he did it. But there was another story about the guy from WeWork,
Adam Newman,
who wanted to take the competition out.
Yeah.
So he got the competition on the plane. Do you remember the story?
I don't know.
He got the guy on the plane and everything else, and basically wiped him out by putting a massive great note outside his business about how we're going to do it. And he had the competition on the plane, and as he was flying over and everything else, he told this guy exactly what he was going to do to his business, and the guy couldn't do anything because he's on a plane.
Yeah.
He thinks he's going on a plane to have a really nice trip to wherever, and he got told very clearly, what I'm going to do is your business and everything else. And while it was happening, he was on the plane.
Really?
So yeah,
he was just a fascinating person. Don't get me wrong; he did some terrible things which he tries to excuse, which I'm sure is inexcusable. But like growing a brand and a culture behind a company and selling the vision, I was so fascinated by it. So yeah, it's interesting to hear what you say about.
What happened? And they set up a fit out company. Let's be honest. I mean, one of the big fit out companies over there, they basically acquired it and they did their own fit out. But to go back to your point about how can you avoid, I think until such time as everyone decides that you've got to work in double digits rather than single digits on projects, you're always going to have this issue where people are going to try and buy jobs. But I think at the moment it's looking at that whole thing between subcontractors, all the contractors that are working on site. The one thing that we try and do as a business is work with contractors that we know, and have the subcontractors as partners. So we apart from vetting them and going through their financials and everything else, but we rarely have them as partners. So they're people that we know, we work with, we can have open conversations. I mean, I had one contractor phone me up last night, late last night, wants to deliver a door today and finish off a project for us. That doesn't bother me in the slightest. There'll be certain other people where, why is a contractor phoning me at such and such time of night? And I think for us, it's all about, having them on as partners. So there's no subcontractors that we're working with that we don't have an open conversation with, and help them, support them, make sure they make money and make sure we make money. Not all of us are like that from a contracting point of view.
And it's like it's trying to merge that line between main contractor, subcontractor, to merge into like from a team element, rather than this is us and that's you, and us being at the top of the project as a main contractor, diminishing profit for you guys, because for some reason in our industry profit for subbies is a dirty word. It's almost like if you're employing a subcontractor, some think they shouldn't be making any money. These subcontractors, they shouldn't be making as much money as us as such. I'm sure there's different opinions to this topic, and it's a touchy topic because I've spoken about it a few times on the podcast, and sometimes I've got to be careful what I say and how I communicate it, because there's times where subcontractors not getting paid have ultimately led to companies going under and lives at risk, and because those subcontractors not getting paid, they're taking it home to families, and it is terrible. But there's got to be a merge between the line of like working together in unison as a team rather than working against each other as such.
So we're just starting a big job in Southampton at the moment, and part and parcel of the project that we're starting, we've had multiple conversations with the subcontractors, but what we do is we bring all the subcontractors into a room together before we even start the job. We make sure all the subcontractors know each other, which they do anyway because they've worked on other projects, but we clearly go through every finite detail on the project to make sure the mechanical knows what they're doing, the electrical knows what they're doing, so nothing slips through. We didn't do that previously. We would give them packages, give them orders, whereas here it's very much about making sure before we start a job that nothing slips through the gap, but everyone knows what they're doing. So everyone knows who's doing the alarm system, who's doing the mechanical, how the power's going to be done with the mechanical, how the plumbing's going to be done. And they're all in one room. We're all transparent. There's nothing being hidden. There's no surprises. But also, so when they turn up on site, they're all working together as a team. They're not stabbing each other in the back. And I think that's the other thing, is that when you sometimes bring multiple contractors on board to a job before that they've never worked with together, there comes that element where it's not as easy and as clean to manage.
It's the best way to be. Transparency on a project by a mile, and like working together in a team. Like, it's the only way that you can deliver a project to the standard that you want to, and uphold a client's expectations. Just tracking back onto a mental note I made, or something you said earlier, was that an MD that you worked for taught you the benefit of being a chameleon.
Yeah.
In situations like, what do you mean by that?
I think when I came back many years ago, I thought everything was black and white. And in life, things aren't black and white. There's grey. And I would love to say everything is black and white, and we all say, yeah, I'm black and white. There are grey areas.
Yeah.
And I think what he taught me is how to be a chameleon, how to approach people, how to listen to people. And I think sometimes you come back, and what I've been able to do is work out that to me is the difference between managing someone and coaching someone, mentoring someone and dictating to someone. And I think I've worked with a lot of different people over the time, and certain people dictate, certain people coach, certain people mentor. And I think what I learned at the ripe old age, same age as you at the time, the ripe old age of 30, I learned very much that in life it isn't black and white. Unfortunately, there is a bit of grey, and if anyone says there's no grey, unfortunately that's bullshit. Yeah. There is. But for me, being a chameleon is that person that can be black and white and grey and can understand a situation. And I think that reverts back to the book I was reading, is that when you go back and you're backpacking and you're stripped back to how you are, the whole materialistic thing goes out the way. And that was the point. nice cars, nice clothes, nice watches. I strip back to everything, go away as Ben and come back as Ben. Unfortunately, very quickly, the materialistic things come back in. You end up getting your nice clothes, your watches, and all those different things. But what it does is you can strip back. You can strip back to that particular person, and I think it's knowing that working with people is about coaching people. It's about mentoring people, and that element of toxicity in the workplace becomes how people manage, how people dictate, and I think that's what I learned very early, that I don't want to be a manager, I don't want to be a dictator. I'm very much someone that wants to coach, wants to mentor, wants to help, and wants to listen. And the other thing is my MD taught me is, you've got 2 ears and 1 mouth, and just remember, listen. So I did learn a lot from a sales perspective, and even to this day, he's selling and still driven, still focused. And I think you that rubs off on you, and the amount of people you must have met over the last God knows how many years. You'll meet people who've got energy, focus, drive. There aren't going to be many people sitting in this seat that you're interviewing that don't have that drive, that focus. They're sitting in this seat for a reason, and they're sitting in this seat because they're ambitious, they're hungry, and I think that's what I haven't lost my drive, my focus, and my hunger. And you try and instill that in people that you're working with.
Yeah, I think a couple of things I want to touch on there as well is, it's just, so I watched I think it was a reel or a short or something, and it's a cliche saying, but it continuously comes up on feeds of mine sometimes, is that you are the product of the people that you spend your time with. And that is actually one of the primary reasons why I started this podcast, was because I thought, how can I get around people who are in my industry, who are high achievers, that I can try and surround myself with, so I can feed off their energy and their ambition, like you said. So that's one of the reasons why I started this, so I can connect with people, network with them, and be in their network, and just try and grow whilst they're growing as well. And just, if there's any way we can help each other along the line, then brilliant. But if it's just absorbing their energy of how they're moving through life, then that's enough for me, without doubt. And then another question I've got, actually, because some people would look at what you mentioned there about being a chameleon and think that's something that I want to be, but it's not really something that I am. Do you think it's intuitive, or do you think it can be learned?
100% learned. I learned it.
Yeah.
But I think you've got to be open to learning, and I think in life you've got to be open to learn, because by learning you develop, by learning you move on. And I think I learned it at that age, and I think there's nothing wrong with trying to learn that element of even today I'm learning. There's nothing, there's not a week goes by where I'm still not learning or want to learn. I was, as I said to you the other day, I was talking to my son, and I'm still picking up things from him that he's doing that I'm going, wow, I like that idea, I like that approach. And I think your podcast, you've interviewed 20-year-olds, 30-year-olds, 40-year-olds, 50-year-olds, 60-year-olds. The demographics at the moment of those different ages is the biggest we've ever gone through. So you interviewing me, you interviewing other people, there's so many different insights that you must be getting, but also the industry. The industry is so different now.
Yeah.
It's changed in the last, it's not even the last 10 years it's changed. In the last 2 to 3 years, it's massively changed.
Yes, actually, let's touch on that. Well, is it like a natural progression onto that topic, actually? So, like, you mentioned the industry's changed, and you've been in it a lot longer than I have. So, like, pros and cons of the changes, like, how has it changed, and what do you think is for the good and for the bad?
I think, if you look at the marketplace now with regard to landlords and the amount of relationships that people have to have with landlords now because of Cat A plus projects that are being carried out at the moment, I think there's we at the moment are finding less and less. We would be pitching projects. We'd be pitching 1-2 projects every other week. The pitching element, in my opinion, has reduced and changed dramatically. Whereas, you'd be pitching a job a lot more often. We're at the moment responding to tenders more. We're responding to projects that are more detail and build than design and build, which means that there's a lot more project managers involved, or there's a lot more external consultants involved. So that's what I've found over the last sort of 24 months, is that the amount of jobs that we're actually going out and pitching aren't as high as they were 2-3 years ago. And I think the market is changing slightly from that point of view. I think it's more of a technical sell than a sales at the moment. I think I think a lot more people are more interested in how the job's going to be delivered and the mechanics behind delivering the job, rather than all of the creative part of the design and how the reception area is going to work, etc. So I do think it's going to change again. I honestly do believe there's going to, but I just think at the moment the market it's a strange market. I think there's no one that you don't speak to at the moment that is saying it's a strange market. Yeah. It's not necessarily saying it's bad, because it's doom and gloom. It's just that you have to change, and it's transitional. But also, in a tough market, the tough survive, and you can't sit there waiting for orders to come in. You can't sit there waiting for opportunities. You have to create the opportunities. You want to win a job, you have to strategize.
Interesting.
But also, you want to win a job, is it worth going for? I got approached yesterday for a client, 1 of 8. Ridiculous.
It's stupid. It's
and that's still, those scenarios are still happening, that people, and you have to look at, I always say, when we're looking at a project, why me? Why us? What's our USP? How are we going to win this job? What's our angle on this job? So for us to go for a project, we absolutely strip, look at it. What is our angle to win that job? Why are they going to go for us? What's the USP for Active? Do they know us? Have we dealt with them before? Do we know the project manager? How are we going to win this job? Is it going to be down to cost? Is it a technical sell? So we spend a lot of time strategizing on how we would win the job, and why us. And that's part and parcel of what I look at from a project point of view when we sit down with the team, is what's the angle? Because there's no point in throwing as much shit against the wall and seeing how much sticks. Pitches are expensive.
Yeah, true.
You could be spending, some people spend 10, 20, 30, 40,000 pounds on a pitch. That's a lot of money. By the time you've done animations, visuals, designs, etc., some of the costs involved at the moment for these pitches is huge.
It's crazy. I mean, that's out of our remit in terms of
Yes,
the values that are spent. But it's crazy to think that people spend £40,000 on a pitch that ultimately they might not win by any stretch. But I suppose if you're not in it, you can't win it. So that's probably the flip of the coin on there. In terms of cultivating relationships with PMs and consultants and whatnot, say there was somebody out there listening today and they were thinking, I don't have a lot of relationships with project managers or consultants, but I really want to try and find, and I want to try and navigate my way through those relationships to try and develop it.
Phone me. I think it's...
sorry to interrupt, but I just want to extend on that point. And the reason why I say that is because I think there's a lot of people who may be in their late teens, early 20s and 30s as such, that have lost the skill set of being able to communicate properly with people. So they're struggling to build the relationships to be able to bring work in. Because, from when you were working, when you were 20s and whatnot, it was all about, phoning people and getting on the phone and speaking to people, because nowadays there's so many different other streams of being able to contact people through LinkedIn and, emailing and direct messaging through social platforms. So the calling and the direct communication element seems to have died out a little bit. So how would you recommend somebody out there who wants to build relationships with PMs and consultants if they can't as they are?
I ain't going to answer that question, but what I'm going to say is that we work very closely and have our own apprenticeships. So as a business, and it's funny, we work very closely with another electrical contractor who's very, very strong on apprenticeships. And the definition of apprenticeships has changed, because people would always think that that's, they're cost effective and people are doing it. We really pride ourselves. We've got some unbelievable people that in our FM team and in our marketing team at the moment that have come on board from an apprenticeship point of view and have worked with us, developed with us. We're working with their apprenticeships that they work with to make sure that we get them to where they want to get to. And that's something we really believe in. So from a business point of view, we've got them in FM, we've got them in operations, we've got them in finance, We've had them at the moment. The latest one we've got is in marketing and social media. So we really believe that apprenticeships is something that we can give back, we can help, and we can develop. It is true people don't pick up the phone nowadays. I was having a conversation on the way to your podcast today that I was phoning 4 or 5 clients, and I know you were talking about how people get into it, but I was phoning 4 or 5 clients and there's no response, and you've quoted the job and the job needs to be back really quickly. So I've been quoting them and chasing them for 2 weeks now. So then on Friday evening I decide to email all 4 of them.
Yep.
And I get a response 2-3 days later from an email, but no phone calls. So people don't pick up the phone now. Weirdly, you WhatsApp people now. I spend more time WhatsApping people and getting responses on WhatsApp than I do from a phone call or an email. So I don't quite know how that works.
It's weird, isn't it? And sorry to interrupt, but like we've got a couple of guys that work with us who genuinely, who work on site for us, who genuinely, if I ring them, they won't answer the phone. They'll wait for it to stop ringing, and then they'll WhatsApp me after and be like, "Hey mate, what's up?" I'm like, "I've just rang you to discuss what's up," and they WhatsApp me back. So like, when I get hold of them or see them, I'm like, say like, "I want you to answer the phone." Like, I don't want to answer the phone. I'd just rather text it.
So wait until your son, who's very young at the moment, has a phone, and at that point. But I have a 16 and a 23-year-old. They never, ever, ever, ever answer the phone. Doesn't happen. They don't even pick the phone up. And I have conversations say, "Why do you have a phone?" You text them or WhatsApp them and they'll get a response.
Yeah.
But kids of today do not pick the phone up. I don't know what it is. So to answer your question, we've got to get the kids to answer the phone first of all, because it seems to be something that's been indoctrinated in kids of today at school, that it's all about WhatsApp, it's all about texting. They don't pick the phone up. And by the way, it's not just my son. There are multiple people. Yeah. It's a very strange thing at the moment. I think it's, to answer your point of view, I think people, the apprenticeship, and I know on other podcasts you've done, is how do people get involved in fit out? How can we get people involved in the trades? And the one thing these electrical guys are doing is they are bringing people in from an apprenticeship point of view and learning them to be an electrician. What they're finding is that they're on a 3-year contract, that they are 3 years, but what's happening is they're doing this amazing training for 2 years, and then all of a sudden at 2 years they're being poached by other people because they've got these 2 years they've been doing, and they're poaching them and offering them good money. Yeah. So what this contractor that we're working with does now is he makes sure that there's a job offer for them after 3 years at a decent money to basically lock them in, to make sure that all of this hard work I've been doing for the last 3 years, there's a job there for you, but also you're not going to go off to the competition, we'll look after you and support you.
Because you can see why people wouldn't want to do apprenticeships if that's the case, because if you're investing your time and money into somebody as a tradesman and an apprentice, and then they ultimately are only ever going to leave once they finish the apprenticeship because someone's offering them more money, it would deter you from doing it unless you had a strategy in place like your electrical contractor does. So you can see why people wouldn't want to do it. And
it is important. And I think, going back, trying to get people into joinery, trying to get people into fit out and everything else at a young age, it is very difficult. The ones that I see at the moment are family. One of the contractors that we work with, his kids work on the tools with him, and that's how it's become about. Actually, thinking about it, 3 of the contractors we work with, their kids are actually working with their parents. So I don't think that's the way forward necessarily, but it is a shame that we're not getting more and more people into those trades at a younger age. I think it's got to start at school. And I think it's got to try and, it's not about woodwork at school. It's trying to get people into those, when they're speaking to their recruiters or various people about going to university, rather than going to university, why don't you look at this route?
Yeah, well, it's a really difficult one because, my mind instantly goes to what we were discussing before, and I won't discuss in detail, but what you were talking about your son and like the life that he lives as a 23-year-old.
Yeah.
Like, what 23-year-old would rather live that life compared to a life of being in a freshly qualified apprentice on a building site, getting your hands dirty and earning reasonable money, but probably not the level of money that they could earn if they're doing something like your son's doing. So, like, you look at that and think, why would they? Why would, unless their family are doing it like you said, and they're following in the footsteps, and they've been exposed to it. So of course they might follow in the footsteps of parents and siblings. Like, why would anyone not want to do the other side of things? Because you're earning more money, your lifestyle's better. So like I don't know where the lure of it could come from over the lure of something else. Like your son's doing a search, and the only reason why I say your son is because we were speaking about it.
Yeah, no, it's true. And one of the guys that he's taken on has come from a building background because he wanted to, earn decent money and could see the opportunity and had that sort of that aptitude that he didn't, but I think the other thing as well is it's university as well. People that go to university come out with a massive debt. When they come out with a massive debt, they want to go and get a job that's earning better money. So what you've got to do is you've got to get people before they go to university.
Yeah.
And there's that transition. Don't get me onto the university conversation, but I think that whole university element is a very tricky scenario. So
it's very tricky, and the only reason is because I was looking at, I was flicking through LinkedIn the other day, and just flicking through people's profiles, and it's very interesting when people in D&B and Fit Out, and you look at their their career and where they've worked, and it's like contracts manager, operations director at a company. Then you go down to what they studied, and it's like chemistry at uni, and it's like how have you gone from studying chemistry at uni to being an ops director of a D&B company? It's just it's rife, isn't it, from people from uni as they do a degree, they qualify and obtain their degree, and then they come out and they can't find a job in the specific industry that they want to go into, so they end up going to something random, and they find their way in that industry as well in the career they're going to do. But it's almost like that side of things from uni is really flawed. And the whole schooling system is a topic that we could dive into for hours and hours.
Yep.
But
it's happy to do it at some point, but not now. But yeah, but you are spot on, because I think the only way you're going to get people into the construction and the building trade at that young age is they're going to have to skip the university bit, and that university time is their time where they're training and they're understanding those trades. But I truly believe that that's the way to do it and to get people in there. But also you've got to have that interest in building, whether it's and it's not easy for a lot of these people. And some people want to make an easier route. If they want to make a quick buck, and how can I make money really quickly? Yeah. Well, it's not through building. So I don't have the answer. I think the apprenticeship side of things and getting people in at that is a starter, but I do think it's a shame, because I think we need to get more and more, people into that, into the industry, because someone's got to support it further down, because this age is going to, where's the new people coming through?
Interesting. Let's touch on active, where you're at now, and like plans for it. So, like, where do you want to get to with active? It's Active Workplace, isn't it?
Yeah, it's Active Workplace Group.
So where do you want to get to with Active? You've been there for 12 months now, so I assume you found your feet, and you've tried to change a few things that need change. But where do you want to get to with the company?
Well, we restructured the business for a reason, to make sure that we can literally put a strong platform in to take it to the next level. It's slowly to get the right people on board. We're going through quite an aggressive recruitment campaign at the moment, but the market is very interesting out there when it comes to recruitment and bringing people on board. But we're looking at growing the business where it will be pretty much 50% fit out, 50% FM. This year we're going to be turning over probably close to 11-12 million. Where we want to grow the business is basically circa 28-30 million over the next 8 to 10 years. That's where our growth is, but we want to make sure we get 50% of that being fit out and 50% of that being FM. The 50% fit out will be move management and furniture, and it will have our works part of the business. One of the things that we've been very fortunate about is our works team that supports businesses up to about 150,000 is getting stronger and stronger, and it's another real USP. So we've got dedicated people that all they do is look after our existing clients and new clients, but under £150,000, so they can get that right level of service. So we set up what we call Active Works, Active Space, and then Active FM. So we've got those clear 3 brands, and that was part of the restructure.
How does it, how culturally, how does that work with Active Works and Active Space? Because one's obviously delivering smaller projects and one's delivering bigger projects. So is there a cultural divide between a natural cultural divide that could happen with a smaller and a bigger as such?
No, I mean, I think from a business point of view, the way it's supported is we're lucky that the team that supports the works team basically cost it and deliver it. And where there are bigger opportunities, it gets over to the D&B team or the space team. Where there's, for example, an existing client and we've done a £1 million project, what happens is once we've delivered the project, we hand it over to the FM team. The FM team supports the project going forward on the 3-year contract, and then off the back of that, the works team supports day 2 service and everything else. So it's trying to have a system in place where we can support it day 2 with FM, we can support it day 2 with the works team, and you've always got that element of where you're looking after the client, because client support at the moment is the most important thing. You know, you've got to look after your clients. You've got to make sure that they are looked after and supported, because trying to find a new client, exactly. You know, I mean, you're going out to 5 clients to get 1 or 3 clients to get 1, whereas you've got a client, you've got to look after it. You look after it, and it's not easy looking after clients. You know, we say it, you know, we've got clients and we're looking after them. You know, you've got to make sure that you support them in the right way, but also the demands from clients at the moment is very, very high. And you've got to make sure that, you know, you give them the level of service that they want.
Yeah, it's true. And it's trying to instill that into your team as well, in terms of the level of service that is required to keep a client happy, and, you know, create like a client journey that, you know, satisfies their needs and what they need. Is instilling that into the team is a difficult thing as well. What about plans for yourself, Ben? So that's plans for the business such. What about plans for yourself? Yeah,
I mean, I think from my point of view, it's, you know, it's very much, you know, I've got 2 kids, both are very, you know, one's very sporty into his football, the other's very driven and focused. I think it's growing the business to where we need it to get to, and spending as much time as I can when I get free time with my wife and I to go and do some nice things. She'll probably be listening to this thinking, when are we going to do some nice things and spend some time away? But it's you know, she always reminds me is that Ben, you live for your holidays. If I can change that a tiny bit, that would be great, because, you know, I love my holidays. I love being you know, spending time with my wife away, and, you know, I love the nice things in life with regard to, you know, nice weather and the good meals and everything else. So it is having that element of social life and, you know, enjoying going out and meeting friends. So it's a bit sad, you know. I'm very, very driven from a business point of view.
It's not sad, it's each to their own, isn't it? Like, people are driven business, people are driven from a social perspective, people are driven from various different perspectives in life. So, like, you know, it's not sad at all. It's just what is, you know, what is right for somebody isn't right for other people as well. But it's nice to speak to somebody and connect with people who are driven from a business perspective, because
you know, and I think you know, I love my football as well.
Who do you support?
Leeds.
Oh,
so we won the league.
Yeah.
So from my point of view, and my kids' point of view, you know, we've supported them for years and years. We had the flag hanging out of the house and everything else when they went up, and to win the championship as well. So for us it's been a huge year. But that's another part of me from a passion point of view is my football. I'm a big football fan.
I love it as well. I'm a big football fan.
Who do you follow?
I'm Liverpool.
Oh, Liverpool.
Yeah.
So every time Leeds have won the league, Liverpool have won the league. So
really?
I think you've won the league 3 times.
What, the Premier League?
The Premier League,
Twice.
Is it? Twice. Okay,
Yeah.
so the last time you won it.
You won it. The championship.
We won the championship.
Oh, interesting.
It's very, very strange. So my brother is a Liverpool fan.
Is he?
Yeah, he's Liverpool, Celtic. I've been Leeds and Rangers for years. We've always had that element of, you know, a connection. But yeah, no, it's strange. Someone keeps reminding me that every time Liverpool have won the league or certain things, Leeds have won the same as well, which is great. So I'm happy to win the championship. Next year's going to be different, but...
Ben, it's been a pleasure, mate. Thank you so much for coming on today. It's been great to hear your opinions and perspectives on the industry. We've covered loads of different topics, and there's so much value for people who are listening in. So, mate, thanks so much for coming down and contributing. Thanks,
Good.
Ben.
No problem at all.
Cheers,
Take care.
mate.
Bye.